Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are going to completely demystify the absolute most confusing aspect of Christopher Nolan's mind-bending cinematic puzzle box, Tenet. Look, if you've seen the film, you already know it's this incredibly dense masterpiece of overlapping timelines that, frankly, can leave your head totally spinning. But we are going to unlock this movie completely. How? By experiencing the film's events purely through Neil's true chronological timeline. Trust me, looking at it this way completely changes the story you thought you knew. You know, you might have walked away from watching this feeling utterly amazed, but also, let's be honest, incredibly bewildered. It's a lot to process. So let me ask you, did you really understand Neil's timeline? Because while the movie flows forward for our main character, the protagonist, Neil is actually living in a completely different reality, hidden just beneath the surface of the plot. Here is how we're going to break this cinematic knot down. 1. Decoding Tenet's time puzzle. 2. Neil's hidden future origins. 3. Neil's inverted progression. 4. The Stalsk 12 paradox. 5. The final lockpick sacrifice. And 6. Fate, reality, and friendship. Section 1. Decoding Tenet's time puzzle. To really grasp what Neil is doing, we first have to wrap our heads around the temporal pincer movement. Honestly, it's effectively the structural blueprint of the entire movie. You have a red team moving forward, experiencing events normally. Meanwhile, a blue team is inverted, moving backward in time, using the knowledge of what just happened to make sure the mission actually succeeds. And when you zoom out and look at the grand scheme of things, Neil's entire relationship with the protagonist is essentially one giant, years-long temporal pincer movement. And this whole concept brilliantly illustrates Nolan's palindromic philosophy. Take the ancient Seder square, for example. It reads the exact same top to bottom to top, left to right, and right to left. Sator, Arapo, Tenet, Opera, Rotos. These are all absolutely crucial words in the film. This ancient stone perfectly mirrors how Neil's own timeline just folds back over itself, moving backwards through the exact events that the protagonist is experiencing forwards. Section 2. Neil's hidden future origins. If we anchor ourselves completely to Neil's perspective, his timeline travels in the exact opposite overarching direction of the protagonist's world time. Think about it. Neil actually starts his journey far in the unshown future, then travels all the way back to our present to help the protagonist, and ultimately meets his heroic end in the past at Stalsk 12. His end is, quite literally, the protagonist's beginning. It perfectly encapsulates what Neil eventually tells the protagonist. You have a future in the past. Sometime in the distant future, an older, much wiser protagonist officially founds the Tenet organization. He recruits a younger Neil, trains him, and they form this incredibly deep, beautiful friendship. And then he sends Neil backward through time with a massive, heavy burden to guide his younger, completely oblivious self through the exact series of events that will ultimately save the world. Section 3. Neil's inverted progression. Okay, let's strip away all the cinematic confusion and trace Neil's journey sequentially from his own point of view. From Neil's chronological perspective, after his future recruitment and years of inverted travel, his very first major interaction with the young protagonist is actually at the Kyiv Opera House, where he saves him with that inverted bullet. Next, he formally meets the protagonist in Mumbai. From there, they travel together to the Oslo Freeport. Then they pull off the Tallinn highway heist, and finally, they arrive at the explosive battle of Stalsk 12. He is experiencing the movie completely in reverse order of how the protagonist is living it. So the absolutely crucial point here is the massive emotional contrast this creates. When Neil warmly orders the protagonist's favorite Diet Coke in Mumbai, he isn't guessing, he's remembering. For the protagonist, it's the exciting start of a brand new alliance. But for Neil, it's the beginning of a long, agonizing goodbye to his best friend. He already knows exactly how their story is going to end. Section 4. The Stalsk 12 paradox. All right, let's untangle the dizzying temporal pincer within a temporal pincer at Stalsk 12. At this specific moment, there are actually 3 distinct versions of Neil operating on the battlefield simultaneously. No, seriously. First, he's inverted with the blue team. He sees the bad guy entering the tunnel, so he breaks off, finds a turnstile, and reinverts to forward time. Now this is the forward-moving Neil driving the truck who drops the rope and saves the protagonist from the explosion. But his job still isn't done. After successfully pulling his friends from the Hippocenter explosion, Neil realizes a terrible, inescapable truth. The algorithm was locked behind a gate down in the cave. Because it was open for the protagonist in forward time, Neil knows that he, and only he, must be the one who goes back, inverted, to pick that lock. He tells Ives he's the only locksmith good enough for the job, prompting his final fatal decision. Section 5. The final lockpick sacrifice. To truly understand the staggering tragedy of this, we have to look at it purely from Neil's own chronological perspective. What does he actually experience in his final moments? Well, he inverts in the turnstile, he runs backwards down the tunnel toward the locked gate, he opens the gate, he holds it for his friends to back out of the room, and then he steps inside, closes it, locks it, and deliberately steps right in front of Volkov's gun, taking a bullet to the head. From the protagonist's forward-moving perspective, it looked like a dead body springing to life to absorb a bullet and unlock a door. But that dead body we saw earlier with the red string and gold coin on the backpack, that was Neil all along, flawlessly closing his temporal loop. He didn't just stumble into the line of fire, guys. He consciously positioned himself to absorb that bullet to ensure the mission succeeded. Section 6. Fate, Reality, and Friendship. Consider the powerful tension between fatalism and free will that underpins his entire journey. Neil explains that knowing the future doesn't actually rob you of free will. What's happened isn't some excuse to just give up. It's a call to action. Neil knows he is going to die down in that tunnel because he's already seen the outcome. Yet, he still has to actively choose to walk away, invert, and make that ultimate sacrifice. His free will is perfectly expressed through his unwavering dedication. And as he turns to leave, his final words are, "This is the end of a beautiful friendship." It's just a heartbreakingly beautiful acknowledgement of their intertwined destinies. Neil's epic, years-long journey is ending right here on the Siberian dirt. Just as the young protagonist's journey, the journey to eventually founding Tenet and recruiting Neil in the first place, is truly beginning. By viewing the film linearly through Neil's eyes like we just did, Tenet completely transforms. It shifts from being just a confusing, loud action puzzle into a profoundly emotional story of extreme dedication, immense sacrifice, and incredible loyalty. Neil essentially lived years in reverse, giving up his own future just to ensure his best friend survived. It really is an incredible narrative achievement when you step back and map it all out. Before we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, wildly popular fan theory. Is Neil actually Kat's grown-up son, Max? Think about it. If you spell the full name Maximilian backwards, the last four letters form Neil. They share the same posh English accent, the same hair color. Was the protagonist protecting Kat the whole time simply to save his future best friend? Does that alter how you view Neil's ultimate sacrifice? I'll leave that provocative thought with you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the mechanics of your world.